Hey, it's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome to another edition of Q&A with a Coach. Today, our friend Anthony sends us a question about the upcoming boxing match between Thor Bjornsson and Eddie Hall. It's scheduled for September 2021, as far as we know. He wants to know if the idea of two top-level strongmen boxing each other is doomed to failure. Is it going to suck? Or are we going to see a decent, extreme, super heavyweight match? Is less than 2 years even enough to get decent training? Who will win? You know, I recorded a whole 30-minute podcast about this that I have not published. But I'll answer your question anyway. Is 2 years enough training to get any good at boxing? Yeah, absolutely. It is. If you dedicate yourself to boxing, you can learn quite a lot about boxing in 2 years. You can go out there and do amateur fights and win with 2 years of dedicated training. Now, is it going to be awesome? Is it going to be absolute fireworks for the average person? No. It's going to be a first-time boxing match. There's a lot that's going to suck. There's a lot you're going to have to work on for next time. Unfortunately, boxing seems to be the go-to sport to settle differences because people seem to think it's easy because of the deceptive simplicity of pugilism. People tend to think, oh, you use this hand and you use this hand, that's all there is to it. It's nothing fancy like MMA. You don't have no submissions or whatever. You just punch them in the face. And because of that type of erroneous thinking, we see a lot of terrible amateur boxing grudge matches that people get really excited about. Remember, what's-his-face, Logan Paul and that other dude. I never followed them on social media, but I did hear the hype. You can't avoid it. But remember those YouTubers setting up that boxing match, and a lot of their fans were expecting to see the second coming of Jesus, and instead they saw a amateur boxing match. For their level of experience, it wasn't too bad, but if you were expecting a great boxing match, that wasn't it. Now these two strongmen. Oh man. As far as strong men go, yeah, these guys are it. Thor and Eddie, man, these guys are it in the terms of strong men. If you want to see them lift and move heavy things, yeah, you're going to see some fireworks in that department. What are we going to see when they box? We're going to see a couple of inexperienced guys with a couple of years of training. Boxing, it's not going to be great, most likely. Can they train enough that it won't be terrible in 2 years? Sure. But at the same time, what makes boxing matches great? Experience. You could train for 20 years straight for your first boxing match, and it would still be terrible. Why? Because it's not so much the amount of time you log into the training, it's the actual experience of fighting. Your first 10 fights are going to suck. They are. That's just inevitable. Those are the experiences where you learn how to learn how to learn. And unfortunately, we're going to be watching the learning process. Hopefully we can learn something from it too. For example, what happens when two giants fight, as opposed to two regular-sized guys. Now, Eddie has some boxing experience. He has stepped in the ring. He has boxed before. I did watch those fights. And he's also boxing guys about half his size. Thor has sparred. You can see from a couple of years ago, he stepped in the ring, put on the gloves, got in the ring with probably the biggest dude he could find, and exchanged some punches. And he covered up and made a lot of amateur mistakes that people always make the first time they get in the ring and start eating leather for the first time in their life. So I imagine 2 years from now, it's going to be different than what we saw right there. Different than what we saw Eddie Hall do in those matches. Definitely different. Even if Eddie Hall doesn't change at all, which he will. Of course he will. You're not the same guy you were yesterday. You're definitely not the same guy you were 2 years ago. And you're not even the same person at a molecular or cellular level as you were 7 or 10 years ago. So yeah, you better make sure your technique also matches that. So I've been watching Eddie's training. I subscribe to his channel specifically to see what he is doing in terms of training. And he's mostly training himself at this point. Kind of has to with the virus situation in his area. It's the socially responsible thing to do. He set up a speed bag. I was happy to see that. A lot of people just ignore the speed bag. They think it's no good. They think the speed bag just makes you better at the speed bag. There's a lot of great things the speed bag does for you. I would say there are 5 levels of complexity to the speed bag. I should probably make a dedicated video about this, but I'll give you a synopsis. The first thing, obviously, the one everybody knows, everybody talks about, timing, hand-eye coordination. Okay, sure. But once you get that rhythm down and you can actually drum that speed bag and get the patterns down, what do you learn from it? Well, power is the next level. That shocked me when I read Jack Dempsey's book, Championship Fighting, and he starts talking about the light punching bag, which is what he called the speed bag, and he said it is one of the most important tools for developing power. And I thought, that doesn't seem right, because that's not the way people in the modern world use that tool. But it is. If you want to develop those fast twitch muscles in the extremities of your hands, your fists, your forearms, the speed bag can do it for you. What else? There's also a level of complexity as far as technique. Yeah, you might think, oh, but those movements don't look like punching, because they're not punching. It's framing, it's hand fighting, it's trapping, it's blocking. Some of it's punching. It's redirecting. It's breaking the guard down. It's doing a lot of really interesting things inside the pocket. Anyway, so I was happy to see Eddie Hall training with the speed bag. I think that could definitely help him in the long run. And it's great to see him taking the initiative to train himself. That's great. For all of you at home sending me questions, oh, Ramsey, I can't go to the gym because either there's no gym in my area or all gyms are closed because of the pandemic, etc. So I won't train. Boo hiss. Boo hiss to that, man. It always makes me happy when people of their own will and volition get out there and train, like I always tell you at the end of all these videos. Get out there and train. A champion is a man who gets up when he can't. A champion is also a man who trains when he can't. Even if that training is just training yourself, dropping and giving 50 push-ups. Because chances are you live in a place with enough floor space to get down and do 50 push-ups. I imagine that's true. What about Thor? I have not seen as much of his training. I think he's being a little more secretive about it, or I'm simply oblivious of his social media accounts where he's posting that stuff. But, yeah, both of these men understand physical culture. They understand that to do a sport, you have to train in it. I know there were a lot of initial taunts. They were both laughing very heartily, with their jolly belly laughs, because they're jolly big men. As they were laughing at things the other man was saying, oh, he couldn't beat me, I'll beat him. Right? There was some haughtiness, there was some pride, sure. But I noticed when they got down to training, they are athletes. They are world-class athletes. So they understand that it takes a lot of hard work and dedication to be good at a sport. They understand what it takes to back up those words. So they will put in the work. They will. They're going to do their best to not give us a crappy boxing match. And they're going to do their best to win. Does that mean it will be great? No, but it's still probably going to be fun to watch. We don't necessarily need great fighters to have a great fight. We need to have a great matchup. I've told this story before, I'll tell it again. One of the greatest fights I ever saw was a fight that took place between two lousy fighters. But these two lousy fighters, lousy as far as technique and athleticism goes. But they had heart. They both had heart in spades. They had no quit in them. And it was awesome. It's like putting two angry bugs in a jar, shaking up, and they go at it, and they don't quit. 3-round fight went to a decision. The audience, everybody there was just riveted to this match. Again, lousy fighters, but they had heart. So it was a great fight. So the question is, how much do they want it? They've certainly been directed by the media, by the fans. The fans want it. How much does Thor want it? How much does Eddie want it? I don't know. So, I'm going to edit that other video where I talk about this and break down some of the more specific stats and so on. Hopefully that'll be entertaining for you. Let me know what you think in the comments below about this match. Is it going to be a snooze fest with giants? Or is it going to be a decent boxing match? Thanks for watching. Now get out there and train.